Hello everyone, it's me Christine again, and welcome to your Criminology class with Professor Simply. I'm not a professor, I am a YouTuber, but hi, hello. Oh, my mic is quiet. Thank you, moderator Ben. How's that? Can you hear me? Can you hear? How's everyone doing tonight on this Simply Stream Sunday? I hear there's like a soccer game going on in Europe. I don't know what these sports are, but I suppose if you're late because of that, thank you for joining me later. But yeah. Hold on a second. Hello everyone from around the world. Where are we from today? England? Europe, Italy, London. Oh, it's England versus Italy is the game. Okay. All right. I'm learning things. Well, today we're going to learn things about crime and nails. Yes, shout out to England as my city. All right. So a few updates just before we get on to today's topic, which will be crime and nails. I'll tell you more about what that actually means. But first, I still have my sub goal, which is I will cut my hair on stream when we reach 3 million subscribers on this channel. And just give me 1 second because I gotta put on slow mode. I do have subscribers only chat enabled today, which is a new thing I discovered. So I've done that in hopes to calm the chat a little bit just so I can read your questions because I really want to read. No, please don't unsubscribe. Ben, why would you say that? He's fired as a moderator. Okay. So we have a 3 million sub goal. That's what this streamer bar is. When I hit that on this channel, Simply Not Logical, I will cut my really long hair on stream. As you guys know, I don't like cutting my hair. I have attachment issues with my hair. So I'm excited to hopefully reach that goal. If you would like to comment in today's chat, if you're here, thank you for coming. All you got to do is subscribe to the channel to do so. So you have to be signed into YouTube to subscribe. A couple other quick housekeeping items. Just wanted to remind those who are entering the HOLO Taco 2nd year anniversary nail art competition that submissions are due by July 13th, so in 2 days from now. I love seeing all your manicures. We do this every now and then. We host like a small nail art competition where the winners will get a gift card, so that's fun. So yeah, make sure to check out HOLO Taco on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, and you can find more information about that. And if you're painting your nails today, whatever time it is, you can use hashtag paintwithsimply so I can find it from tonight's stream, but you can also use the HOLO Taco entry hashtag if you are submitting nail art for that competition. I always love to see your nail arts. I also have some news that I'll talk about more at the end of the stream because it's less relevant to most of you. But I am looking for some moderators to help me out here, so I'll talk about that at the end if you are interested. All right, so we're doing nails and crime. What? Why? What is going on here? What channel is this? Who do I think I am? Before I get into anything, I just want to give a general content warning that we're going to be talking about crime, although I will say that it's going to be at a general kind of like trends high level, as opposed to really digging down into like victims or anything like that. So there's not, I'm not going to be showing gore or the victimization of people, though we are going to watch a short clip from the JCS Criminal Psychology YouTube channel if you're familiar with that. But yeah, if the topic of crime is sensitive to you, then just wanted you to know that from the outset. No, we're not doing bloody nails. But you know, I've done that before when I broke a nail. Now that's a crime. There will be no nail crimes committed tonight. All right, so I don't know if you guys have noticed, I sure have, that recently there's been a trend of streamers and YouTubers, but mostly streamers reacting to criminal psychology videos. So the most common channel that I've seen like kind of begin this content and then streamers will react to it is the JCS Criminal Psychology channel. That's this channel right here. So if that looks familiar to you, I've watched all the videos, for the record. The red bars are only there sometimes for unknown reasons. But so who in the chat has seen this channel? Who in the chat, who's one of these 42 million views? So I don't really know who this person is or when this genre originated, but I do know that it's really picked up with streamers and react channels who will watch basically the entire episode of, they're an hour, some of them are 2 hours long, and they're really fascinating. So we're gonna cover why they're fascinating, why I think they're fascinating, and also how they relate to criminology, and if this all means we're criminologists now because we watch these. So I want to talk about this for a little bit. I'm gonna grab an example and we're gonna watch just part of one of these videos, and then we're going to talk a little bit about you know, criminology in school. Is it what you see here from my experience? And we're going to talk a little about crime statistics, because that's the only thing I have somewhat of a background on to share, because I'm not a police interrogator, which is what most of these videos are about. And yeah, then I'm just going to take your questions about crime and nails. We are going to be painting our nails throughout this. All right. So before I get into this and before we watch one of them, I'm going to start with the base coat, okay? Let's start with smoothing base coat. Always down with the statistics. Yes, Helen. We love statistics. I'm definitely going to answer some questions today about like what I do, because I know that's everyone's question. It's like, do you do what JCS Criminal Psychology does? And the short answer is no. I'm not a criminal psychologist, although I'm not even sure that the person behind the channel is either, but they clearly have some kind of background in it, or at least knowledge on it, so I think that's pretty cool. All right, so I'm just painting my nails with smoothing base first to set the stage for the nails we're gonna do today. I'm not gonna be doing nail art because I'm simply illogical, but because I think it's gonna take too much concentration from my brain to try and do nail art and talk about this at the same time. So I'm just gonna do a straight up color. Can you list what you're gonna do in advance of the live stream so we can do the same mani? Yes, absolutely. So let me just paint this, and I actually wanna test something on the YouTube tool that will allow me to show you in the chat what I'm gonna do. Just give me a second. All right, so we are gonna use smoothing base, which let's test something. Okay, yeah, I've been meaning to test this. So smoothing base is great for just smoothing out your nails. And let's see if this works in the chat, if it actually shows up. I've been meaning to test this new feature. Look at that! So if you're in the live chat, it should pop up and show you exactly what I'm using. So now I don't need to repeat it. I can just put it in the live chat. But yeah, as I did this, I realized that like this isn't the plan I initially intended, because what I would like to do is then go in with Zyler the cat in his cute little cat box. Because, fun fact, Zyler the cat is one of the worst selling nail polishes that we have. I was going over some data in the last, like from last year, and of the stuff we released last year, we were looking at like which nail polishes aren't selling as much because now they've been around for a while. And Zyler is one of them. So, you know, I don't think this is very fair to my son. It would be a crime to have to discontinue Zyler the cat because he doesn't sell well. Poor Zyler, I know, right? Poor Zyler in his special box, even though his sister has the same box, people are buying his sister more than him. So this is Zyler, who I wanted to pay a tribute to, because it would be a crime to have to discontinue Zyler the cat nail polish. So the next time if you don't have Zyler the cat, the next time you're checking out on HOLO Taco, please consider supporting Zyler the cat if you like a deep fall, kind of orangey pumpkin spice vibe. I think it's very nice for the upcoming fall season. Hashtag save Zyler the cat. Anyways, I was gonna wear him, but I'm so dumb because I realized I just put on smoothing base, and normally I would put on peely base before a glitter. Like, what am I doing? I don't know, man. My brain is all over the place. But I'm just gonna have to take it off with acetone. So I'm just gonna let my smoothing base dry for a little bit until I put on Mr. Zyler the cat. Hold on. Now I can show you Zyler. I love this. Yeah. All right, Zyler has been pinned to the chat. Hashtag save Zyler. He's perfect. Please don't make me discontinue Zyler. This polish has been around for almost a year, so it's not like it's new, but all right. All right, so while I let that dry, let's just hop on over to the JCS Criminal Psychology channel, which I started watching like 8 months ago, well before streamers started making content out of reacting to them. And I don't feel like it would be fair for me to watch an entire hour or like the entire episode with you live, because I just feel like it's taking away from the JSC Criminal Psychology channel's work. And I think if you want to watch the entire episode, you should definitely hop on over to their channel. I put a link in the video description box, and you can watch the entire thing. However, I would like to offer you guys a bit of an idea of how his videos are made and get a sense of them, because I think like summarizing it so you get an idea is interesting. But just before I do that, I'm interested in how many of you have seen a JCS psychology video, so I know how much to explain here. So let me just make a poll. Have you seen a JCS video? yes or no. All right, so if you want to answer the poll, let's see. Are you guys criminologists or not? I saw someone ask if I could put a peely base over a smoothing base. You can. I mean, you can do anything, but it wouldn't really peel off because the peely base is just going to stick into the smoothing base. However, the reverse would have been fine, and the reverse is what I would normally do, peely base first. If you want to peel off your nails, you have to put peely base on first, and then you can use another base coat like to smooth it out. But I'm dumb, and I just forgot. And I was thinking too much about crime. All right, so, okay, over 2,000 of you have voted already, and, oh, the polls are close. 55% says they haven't seen a JCS video. So we're almost split, but a little bit more people haven't seen it. Okay. So I think I'm going to explain then. Oh, is it not showing you the poll on screen? It's so weird. What if I hit end poll? Let's see what that does. Yeah, okay, there. Oh, it's going by quick, but yeah, most people have said no. All right, so let's explain it a bit. I have watched every single one of these videos. I have no shame. I watch them while I edit things. I watch them while I work. I find them very interesting because I think this is a good example to me of someone who overviews true crime and really seeks to teach people about it as opposed to using cases, you know, in a sensational way for profit. Obviously, the channel, I believe, is monetizing and is profiting in some way, but I do believe they are adding value and are not attempting to sensationalize the case. Because the one thing you have to remember is that all of these involve real people, and most of them involve real victims. So I think that that's just at, you know, utmost importance to recognize, and that not all of this is real, and it's not a joke. It's not, you know, it's not clickbait. But I think there's something to be learned from a criminology perspective. Which episode interested me the most? Okay, so I mean, they're all really good, but I'll take you through one of them. We're gonna watch a little bit of Jennifer's solution, just because I find this one to be interesting because it involves a young person, which personally I've always found that. Let me just pause the music for a second. I've always found cases involving young people, I think she was 24 at the time of the crime, to be a little bit more fascinating because you're kind of wondering what they're thinking and were they considering their future and how their upbringing was that kind of led them to this moment. And I think the justice system does consider age. And I don't know, I'm always more interested in young people who commit crimes. So I also think this one is interesting because Jennifer is from Markham, Ontario, and I grew up in Richmond Hill, which is like 30 minutes away. No, I did not know her. Canada's not that small. But yes, if you've watched JCS videos before, you know that a lot of his videos, just by chance, he's chosen to investigate cases that took place in Ontario. Why? I don't know. Maybe he or she or they, I don't know, who runs the channel, had easier access to the interrogation tapes. I'm not really sure. But no, Ontario is not the murder capital of the world. I will show that to you next with some crime statistics. But yeah, let's just, I want to give you a sense for those of you who haven't seen what JCS is about. But I just wrote a quick summary so I don't have to repeat his 15 minutes from the beginning. So this case is about Jennifer Pan, who was 24 years old at the time of the crime. She was accused and then convicted of setting up a plot to have her parents killed. So the background to that is that she lived at home with her parents that were said to be very strict with extremely high expectations. Expectations like in school, her grades. She was supposed to go to the Olympics for figure skating, but later had an injury that prevented her from moving forward with that. They also wouldn't let her date her boyfriend or have contact with her boyfriend. And by the time she was in her 20s, she pretended that she got into University of Toronto, but she didn't get in. She just told them she did. And it sounds like she spent that time with her boyfriend instead. So a tough upbringing with strict parents was kind of the context here. And then when she was 24, she worked with her boyfriend and some other people to set up a plot to have both of her parents killed at home. She was later convicted, and if you want to know the outcomes of her sentence, I believe she's incarcerated right now in Ontario. And I think this was from 10 years ago, the case. She's only a couple years older than me. So, yeah, I'm seeing in the chat, everyone kind of, the people who know this case feel bad. I think that people like this case or are interested in it because it was very polarizing. I also think younger people might be able to relate or think they can relate to her if they've ever experienced overly strict parents. I think the right take for this one is that no matter how strict your parents are, it's never a good idea to try and murder them. It's not funny, but that's just kind of, did the parents survive? So I believe the mother did not survive, but the father did, kind of miraculously, like after being in the hospital for a while. So, yeah. Yeah, people are saying I can relate to this, but I would never do this. Good. Yes, I know. A lot of people have strict parents, and I really don't want to undermine also how strict they were because I don't know. I'm not her. I don't know what she experienced. I imagine it was a lot to make her do this, but even still, like, don't murder your parents. All right. Okay. So let me show you what this video is. Let me just find the timestamp. We'll start at 15. Let's just do a quick audio check.
I want my daughter.
Hold on.
Jennifer then hears one
Is that audio
of the
okay,
intruders yell,
Ben?
"You lied to us."
Who do you hear yelling, "You lied to us," or to that extent?
Number 3.
Number 3.
I'm assuming it's to my father.
So I'm just waiting
because he
for
was the
Ben.
one asking for the wallet.
Okay.
Now you hear this.
All right. Sorry. There's a 15-second delay on this, so. Okay. I just want to start over. I'm going to shut up just for a little bit so you can hear how the narrator interplays between the interrogation episodes. So there's a bit of the interrogation component where just like the cop is talking to the suspect at the time. And then the narrator will.
Jennifer was then taken back upstairs alone with 2 of the assailants to help them find it. They don't find the wallet, but instead retrieve a pile of cash from inside the nightstand. Jennifer was then tied to the upstairs banister and left alone as the intruders went back down.
And the next thing I can hear are them telling my parents to move to the basement.
Okay.
And I'm asking them, why, where are you going? And my mom's yelling to me, I want my daughter. Why can't my daughter come too? I want my daughter.
Jennifer then hears one of the intruders yell, "You lied to us."
Who do you hear yelling, "You lied to us," or to that extent?
Number 3.
Number 3.
I'm assuming it's to my father because he was the one asking for the wallet.
Now you hear this commotion downstairs. You said you heard 2 pops. And you heard who scream?
My mom.
Your mom. And what was she screaming? Do you remember?
I couldn't make it out. It
No?
was kind of like a cry yell, so it was just...
Okay.
They had made the first round, or pop, and they had said, okay, that's enough. Let's go.
Who said that? Whose voice is that?
Number 1.
Okay.
And then I heard one more after that. And they were like, that's enough. Let's go.
Okay. And again, that's number 1.
So what he's kind of doing here, the interrogator, is... Oh, did I not turn on captions? Sorry, apologies. I will turn them on now. is he's catching her in a few lies, and I think we don't even need the narrator to tell us that, but
Yes.
So what do you hear next after you hear the
let's
scrambling?
find the
They're
narrator
gone.
tell us that.
Because you're hearing no more. I gather that's how you assume they're gone, is because you don't hear it. Then you hear your dad.
I reach for my phone at
Okay.
that point.
And you call 911. Okay? When your father exits, you hear the door open. Because you hear your dad, and then you
And then
see...
I can hear like the outside noises,
Okay.
like the wind coming in, and I just hear my dad. I think he's.
You think that he's sustained some kind of injury because he's not... You can't understand what he's saying. Okay. What about... Can you hear your mom? Okay. Where does your dad go? Do you know where... You never see your dad again until when we're at the hospital. I think that's what you said, right?
I saw him when he was on the gurney.
Is there any reason to suspect, or anything that's happened in the recent weeks leading up, that would have you guys be a target of some type of incident like this?
We live a straightforward, kind of almost routine life.
Whenever Jennifer smiles, it takes her a couple seconds to realize she's not exhibiting the correct behavior, and she then snaps back into her solemn stare. The two looks are so diametrically opposed to each other that it becomes glaringly obvious she's forcing one of the emotions.
So that's kind of the narrator's thing. Like, he'll point out a particular behavior, whether it's like a certain gesture or a retraction of words or a changing of a statement, and he'll give some psychology terms to it. And I find like that's what people find most interesting about his work, is he'll play like several minutes of the interrogation, so you as a viewer can like listen and just observe and just get more drawn in to this person and what is unfolding in front of you, and kind of get to experience it by proxy through the interrogator's eyes in a way. It kind of feels like we're all becoming detectives. I think that's part of what makes this content really fascinating. But let's fast forward to just a little bit more here.
Lies. Jennifer is still a witness at this moment, and the exchange is void of any direct confrontation. Yet she is still put under a modest amount of pressure, and the holes in her story start to become ever more apparent.
Take that first interview that we had, which was, hours after what had transpired, put it aside. It's almost like we've never spoken before, okay? So we're starting afresh. We're starting from new. That way you're not going to say, I think I already told him that. Don't worry about what you've already told me.
Do you, Jennifer Penn, swear or declare that the evidence that you give in this investigation shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
We're going to see if we've learned or if you've remembered anything else. And there's some questions with respect to that statement
see her
that I'm going to
hands
ask you about.
fidgeting.
Okay, but I'm going to let you start again, and let's move forward from any time in that day where you want to start. If it's the time you woke up or if it's the time that your first interaction, it's your choice.
Okay, I'm very nervous, and I
Why are
don't
you?
remember
Why are you nervous? Tell me about why you're nervous.
because I don't want to say the wrong things.
Because
that day was a lot.
You're right.
And I've been scattered, and so bits and pieces are here and some pieces aren't here, and I'm just...
So I want you to sit back in your chair, okay? Just sit back in your chair, take a deep breath, okay? Close your eyes, just follow my line, just sit back in the chair for a second, sit back, relax as the best you can, close your eyes, and just breathe for a minute, okay?
The most curious detail you've probably come to notice is this. It's known as a self-pacifying gesture. A person who does this is most often uncomfortable and sometimes fearful of what lies ahead.
So this is Mr. Narrator giving us the psychological analysis of what's going on here. And I feel like a lot of his comments are like a lesson in psychology, and it kind of reminds me of back when I took criminal psych in undergrad. There were so many terms used to just describe simple behavior, Like if you're just an average person just watching this, you'd say like she looks nervous, she's fidgeting her hands, and all of those could be a sign of her getting nervous about the fact that she's going to be caught or she's going to mess up on her story. But there's terms like self-pacifying gesture, which is just a fancy way of saying like trying to comfort oneself. And I'm not trying to, take away from the criminology discipline. I just remember being an undergrad and there was just so many concepts and words that were just like a fancy way to explain something pretty simple that you had to memorize in order to get that correct on the multiple choice exam. That's kind of like what this use of concepts takes me back to. So I don't know if anyone's taking criminology or psychology right now and can totally relate to that, but you just need to like memorize like, no, it's self-pacifying gesture, not self-comforting gesture, because, those terms make all the difference. So I'll just show you a couple more sections from this. So 25. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. Hi, if you're just joining, we are doing crime psychology analysis of the crime psychology analysis. We're going to paint our nails, I swear. This always happens to me, doesn't it? Okay, 25, 35 is where I wanted to go. Another example of the great job done by JCS Criminal Psychology.
Downstairs, and only brought it up when reminded by the detective.
Take the other statement and whatever we've said before.
No, I said it earlier.
She didn't say she was tied up earlier. She completely forgot to mention it and seems to be trying to convince the detective otherwise. It's a moment of slight panic, which becomes far more pronounced when you compare it to her supposed grief-stricken recollection.
I mean, as an observer, it's easy to agree with this once he's kind of labeled them as fake sorrow, genuine panic. I just want to caution, though, that like just based on these pictures and someone, we don't really know. Although I understand that, in the context of his research, he was right. But just generally speaking, I don't think it's a good practice to just take a snapshot of a person and like decide that is fake sorrow, unless in retrospect, but just generally speaking, I'm just cautioning it.
5 seconds earlier. The detective doesn't challenge this, as it can be used against her at a much later stage, and the main objective at this point
You guys are saying she's prepping her nails? Oh my god, stop.
is to collect as much conflicting information as possible.
Okay, then let's get back to that area. I think you might have touched on it. We went back into the description. So where do you get your hands tied, and where does the string come from?
I'm not sure where the string comes from, but he had the string.
Okay.
And after I gave him my money, that's when he tied my hands.
She is then taken downstairs where she sees her mother being interrogated by the second assailant over the whereabouts of the cash. According to her first statement, the second assailant never said a word the entire time.
He had pushed her back onto the couch, and she
Who
kept...
pushed her?
Number 2.
Okay.
He was pushing her back onto the couch. And she kept saying, "Where's my purse?"
Interrogation plays out, allows us to...
So I'm just going to fast forward a bit to, I think this was the third interrogation.
Acknowledge that the psychological manipulation begins before a single word is spoken. The physical layout of the room is designed to accelerate the sense of discomfort and isolation, and it's fascinating to observe how each interrogator has their own unique methods of setting the tone. Knowing how this interrogation plays out allows us to realize this detective's procedure. The considerable distance between him and the suspect will keep her relaxed enough to be influenced by Phase 1. But this same distance will intensify the pressure once he eventually closes it during Phase 2.
So I really like JCS for this reason, or for more than this reason, but I think this is a good example of what the channel does, is they really use concepts that you learn in psychology, especially like police interrogation psychology, about building trust and rapport with the person you're interrogating in order to get that confession, or get more information about maybe where the victims are, and just like other things that will help you piece it together so you can present it to the prosecution if you're on the police side. So I find things like this, the visual addition to it is so like useful. And I feel like I wish there was more of this when I was in university, because my memory of, you know, building trust and rapport in order to establish that relationship and connection and get more information from the suspects was out of a textbook. And I'm not saying that there weren't documentaries available, but like, oh my God, I wish I had this kind of YouTube channel to be able to help support me in my understanding of the concepts and how they actually unfold in a real life scenario. Yeah, and also, good point, someone mentioned like police interrogation tactics aren't always good, and I think it's important to learn about the some of the like the best ways to go about it, because they can also get false confessions. So I remember reading about that back in the day. So, and there's different techniques they use, and it's important work. Like the interrogators doing this work, the police, like they need to be well trained. They need to know what they're looking for, and they need to do it in a legally accurate way that isn't going to be thrown out at trial either, right? Like they can't do anything or put words in the suspect's mouth and so on. So I think it's a very careful job. You need to be a very patient person. And yeah, I never thought I would end up being a police interrogator. I think that I knew that wasn't for me, but I definitely have always been interested in this kind of thing, especially the psychology of the person sitting in that chair. So I think we're going to get off of this for now. But I just wanted to give you guys a feel for this type of content, because this is what's trending right now. This is what a whole bunch of streamers are reacting to, and they're watching like the full hour or two through and giving their live reaction to their audience. And I think if this type of content interests you, maybe you can go check it out yourself, but I don't want to watch the entire thing with you. I also don't want to misconstrue the fact that like I'm not a criminal psychologist. I don't know what I am. I'm a crime statistics analyst. That's not the same thing. So the takeaways that I have from watching the content on JCS is that, like, just what I've learned as a person, not necessarily an expert, is that there's a difference in between a person who's guilty and a person who's innocent, and I think this channel does a good job at really showing that by just showing their actions on camera, you know, for like 30 minutes at a time, the interrogation, and you can see them speak for what it is and exactly what they say. And I find that really fascinating to just observe that. I think you'd also learn a lot of different psychological terms for behaviors and the art of police interrogation, how it takes patience. And I think you also learned that you should always ask for a lawyer. Every single one of these, I mean, I assume they were kind of selected for this reason because they became good content because there's an hour worth of interrogation. But all of the suspects in these cases, like none of them are asking for lawyers, or very rarely. And you always should, whether you are guilty or not. I'm not teaching people who are guilty how to get away with crimes, but just generally speaking, you need to know your rights, and you have the right to ask for a lawyer no matter what country you're in. Like, a lot of these cases are from Ontario. Any of these people could have asked for the right to speak to a lawyer. I assume the reason why we aren't seeing those interrogations on this channel is because you would only have 30 seconds worth of content to look at, so it's not anything to investigate anymore. So that makes sense. All right, so let's talk about why the intrigue of crime. Like, why is everyone interested in this? How about you guys comment in the chat if you've already seen this, why do you like it? And if you just experienced it for the first time, do you want more? Why do you think you want more? And as you think amongst yourselves, I'm going to start painting my nails. But sorry. All right, so I will be painting my nails while you guys comment in the chat. We're going to go in with Zyler the cat. And I just realized I won't be able to read the chat while I'm painting my nails. Like, come on, Christine, you gotta think these things through. Oh, you can't hear the music? One sec. Can you hear that? Ban. Ban is moderating today. Thank you, Ban. So we're just going in with some Zyler the cat. Because we don't want him to be discontinued. We're showing some love for Zyler the cat. Hashtag save Zyler the cat. So this is just the first coat, which is always going to be a bit of a lighter jelly base. You want to build up the hollow glitters because the glitter sits in a jelly base, so you can see the hollow shine through. And then when you layer on 2 or 3 coats, it really builds that dimension up so you can see it sparkle. Here, let me get you a good thumbnail. Wow. Maybe I'll turn the lights down a little. It's like too bright, huh? There we go. So that's one coat. We'll do more. Let's let that dry while I read some of your comments. All right, let me just check out the chat. Michelle is interested in JCS Criminal Psychology style videos because it's fascinating. We always wonder what could motivate or inspire someone to do something so outside of the norm set by society. Yeah, I think that's a great insight. And I remember some of my first classes in university were about crime and deviance. And that's kind of the first thing they teach you is, first of all, what is crime? Who defined crime? And in some cultures, some things we define as crime are normal. So where is that line? I think for some things, you know, it's pretty obvious, but there's other things that have changed over time that used to be crimes and now they aren't, right? Like certain, like use of cannabis, right? Used to be a crime in Canada, now it's not. So things change over time. But yeah, if we're talking about homicides, why someone does that, the number of factors, what they experience as a child, what has led them to that. There's a lot of psychology like tests that people do. I remember there was like the PCLR something from my memory. I should probably just say I'm not a psychologist. I have my Bachelor of Arts in Criminology and Criminal Justice with a concentration in Sociology, and then my Master's is in Sociology with a concentration in Criminology. But I took a lot of crime and psychology classes in undergrad. You kind of needed all of that as a prereq for where I ended up. Yeah, all this stuff is fascinating, and honestly, the reason why I went into criminology was because of content like JCS. Although this didn't exist exactly, I was watching the more sensationalized types of crime stuff like CSI or Law and Order, and, you know, shows that featured different psychopaths and the horrible crimes they committed. I was always very interested in it. Someone just asked, that's of arts and not science? Yeah. So a lot of criminology is like an arts degree. So is psychology. It's an arts degree. Even forensic psychology was technically that. If you go on to like your PhD, I think things change a bit, and it also might depend on where you study. But generally speaking, like criminology has 3 different disciplines. So there's some people in criminology who are in like psychology, like criminal behavior, and they look at things like actuarial tools and measuring recidivism or like different indexes, that like checklists where you can see how close someone is to being a psychopath. There's things like that. And then there's the law branch of criminology, which is the legal stuff, like crime and justice policies, the legislation, the criminal code of Canada, but I guess whatever equivalent there is in the States. And then there's the sociology branch of criminology, which is more like the social conditions and circumstances that lead to crime. And also just the sociology of crime itself, like who defines it, what's normal, what's abnormal, and kind of almost like a philosophical approach to it. And definitely looking at like economic circumstances and, the crime industrial complex. I love constructive conversations on crime and criminalization, but not a fan of crime fetishization. I would totally agree with that. And I think a lot of content these days on crime, like specific cases, kind of glorifies it or just makes it like very clickbaity. And that to me makes me really uncomfortable. Or when I watch a streamer live react to some of this content, for example, like, if all they're doing is just making shocked faces at the scenario and being like, oh my God, like to me, that's not only disrespectful to the families and the victims, but I also think it's not really helpful in educating people about like the value of this content and what we can learn from this. But, I'm just coming here from my bias in studying this for 7 years and working in this field. So yeah, I think like I'm pretty sensitive to people glorifying it or making a joke of it and kind of disrespecting the fact that this is real. I don't think that means that we can't watch, documentaries about serial killers and be interested in it. I think it's good. I was interested in this stuff because of that type of content at first. When I was 16 years old, I decided I wanted to go to university for criminology because of sensationalized crime stuff. But then I went to school, and within year 1, I learned that that's not what it's about. So yeah, I definitely it became more boring, but so much more important and valuable than just what I saw on TV. And I feel like I grew a lot as a person, even just through that experience. It gave me just like a much bigger appreciation for the complications in people's lives and what kind of led them down that path, as opposed to like, oh, holy shit, why they're crazy. Like that's not a good attitude, but I understand why people have that attitude given the way that crime in certain cases are depicted in mainstream media. I just hope that if it interests you, that you take the time to look at it a little more deeply. And if you are considering a career in criminology, you're going to come out of that with a totally different perspective. Not that I'm your career counselor. Like, what am I doing? But yeah, let me know in the chat what types of crime shows, detective shows, whatnot, whether YouTube or otherwise, that you watch. I'm always interested to find good content. Spoiled Milk said, I think it's a mix of morbid curiosity and it gives insight on how different people are and their motives. Psychology gives the opportunity to explore the mind, people, and their vastly different aspects. Yeah, I like that. And I think that is a good reason to be interested. And one of the reasons I was too. It's just, criminology isn't all about serial killers. And people who study criminology end up with jobs most of the time that have nothing to do with interviewing serial killers. All right, I see tons of questions on that, but let me just do my second coat first. Because we got to paint our nails. Hashtag paint with Simply. It's amazing how interested you guys are in this topic. I feel like I've shied away from talking about crime, which is weird because that's my day job. But maybe that's why I feel weird. So we're just adding a second coat of Mr. Zyler the cat. Hashtag save Zyler. Can I get some hashtag save Zylers in the chat? Hashtags don't work on YouTube, but we're gonna make them work. Look at this beautiful color for fall. Don't let anyone tell you Zyler's not the favorite cat, okay? Stunning. You guys like Scooby-Doo as a crime example? What channel are you watching? Cartoon Network? I remember in first year of criminology, we had to write a one-pager and hand it in to our professor about why we were interested in criminology and like basically why we were in his class. And I wrote the most embarrassing letter ever in my life. I read it just a few years ago. I can't remember why. I was looking through old files and reading that back. Like, I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, I was literally a child who didn't understand anything. And the shit I wrote was just so dumb looking back. But I'm not trying to say that you can't. Obviously, you learn and you grow and you kind of understand things in a different light later. It's just always funny for me to look back at my own work early on before I knew anything. And I had written about like, oh, I just want to know how the minds of serial killers work. And I want to explore and I think I can figure it out. I wrote something like that. And it's like, no, baby, simply. But it's that passion and that interest that makes for good students, I think. So there we go. That's 2 coats of Zyler. I think I'm going to do 3 because there's some patches that are just a little bit transparent. And ooh, what's on my other hand? Do we have this music? I don't think it's playing. I don't know how to, I can't. I'm a bad streamer. But, what have we got? We've got some multi-chrome purple with envy. It's really mysterious. Perfect for the Crime podcast stream. What is this? And then I've got full charge is the neon green. And then I've got some 1 coat black. Oh, the music worked? Oh, I didn't hear it. I don't understand. I think this looks good together. Like, I'm ready for fall. I'm ready for Halloween. That's what this manicure says. Wow, you guys are giving me so many suggestions. Trial 4 on Netflix. I haven't seen that one. I'm interested in that. All right, let's read through the chat. Hashtag save Zyler. I need a sound designer. I know. Guys, I feel like I've done pretty good so far with the stream. Someone asks, what do you think of the Vow and the Nixium case? Oh, no, that was interesting. Yeah, so that was the case of the cult with Keith Rainier, I think, was the leader. And then he basically recruited young women to help him recruit other young women into servitude, essentially. And wow, like that one's just so fascinating. I can't even explain all of the ins and outs of that one on this, but I think they did a good job, at least in the production of that. I think that was Netflix, or was it Crave? I can't remember. But yeah, The Vow is what it's called, or Nixium. I think there's a few different documentaries on it. All right, so what I like about the JCS stuff is that I think it makes us all feel like we're a professional. In a weird way, you can watch that content and just nod your head along with the narrator, and you're like, yes, that is the, whatever technique, where they're clearly trying to hide the fact that they have a predetermined motive. So I think listening to that kind of makes you feel like you're smart and you're gaining knowledge and you're suddenly a detective. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing because, we're not all professionals, and I wouldn't encourage people to then proceed with their lives and do that to others in their life and tell them that they're lying because they're holding their hands together. Like, please don't do that. But I think it is good to, if that makes you interested in the profession, if it's something that you're interested in as a student or potentially a field of study, then that's a cool thing. Is anyone in criminology or psychology, sociology, or law related to crime and justice? Well, we'll broaden it a little bit. Anyone in crime, justice, or psychology related fields right now? Enter in the chat. Tell me what you're studying. I'm seeing quite a few of you. That's so cool. I feel like people actively in school for criminal psychology right now know way more than I remember. Lots of you. Oh my God, so many people studying psych, law, social worker, forensic science. I wonder if in class they will watch things like JCS Criminology, criminal psychology now. Like, are your profs showing that to you? Do you talk about that with your profs? Because this kind of stuff wasn't really around for us. We didn't have Netflix. So, I mean, it's not like there wasn't documentaries, but the stuff we watched in school was like always so old. So I feel like a lot of people are also wondering what you can do with a degree in psychology. So let's Google that. Who wants to be a criminologist with Simply and Illogical? Oh my God, hold on. You need to see that. Why are you holding Zyler? Save Zyler. Zyler.
Save Zyler.
Guys, hashtag save him.
He's sleeping. I'm gonna take him back to bed.
Save my cat. Zyler, don't worry. The people are gonna save you. I'll be sure to report back on Zyler the cat sales. Thank you for the tea, Ben. He has to go back to moderating. You work in a prison? Damn, that's tough. Much respect. I never worked in a correctional institution, but I had a job working as a student for the national headquarters of Corrections Canada, and I got to go to an institution just as a part of like their learning experience. And yeah, wow. The people who work there and like the people who are either correctional officers or deliver correctional programs, like rehabilitation programs, like much respect to those people. It's such a challenging job that requires a lot of patience and just like a different type of talent. Social workers, yep. Also, very challenging job. Okay, where were we? I was looking at... Let's look at jobs in criminology. People always ask me that. You're seeing my Statistics Canada. Jobs in... It's hard to type. I'm going to do Canada just because I might find something that is a little more... Oh, look, Carleton University. That's where I went. So I find the best way to like look at what types of jobs you can get with a criminology degree is by going to a university website, because they usually do a good job at articulating what the hell you can actually do with their degree in order to, you know, make you enticed to take their program. And I always feel like people who are interested in serial killer stuff think that that's what criminologists do, and I guess this is a good way to dispel that is definitely not all that they do. There are so many different jobs in criminology that have nothing to do with interviewing Ted Bundy, you know? So you've kind of got there's like 4 different arms. There's corrections, courts, law enforcement is police. So yeah, there's 3. Corrections, we've got investigators, corrections officers, welfare workers, case workers, probation and parole officers, social workers, rehabilitation counselors. And then I worked in corrections for some time as a student, as I mentioned, and I worked in the reintegration and rehabilitations program, but I mostly did like the data side of that. But the people I worked with did things like develop the program that people who were in an institution would take before they were released from the institution. So it's like an effort for them to rehabilitate and reintegrate into society once their sentence has come to an end. Then we've got courts. So we're kind of working backwards here, but the corrections and then courts. And there's bailiffs, court admins, court clerks, court reporters, judges, criminal lawyers, of course, legal paralegals, victims advocates, pretrial. Then you got law enforcement, which is police end of things, border services, detectives, specialists across the board, whether it's in drugs, explosives, etc. Police officer, investigators, parking enforcement officer. Okay. Postal service. I don't know what that is. Checking the mail? That's cool. Private investigator, probation officer, security guard. And then we've got forensic. So this is probably where Mr. JCS, if he does have a background in it, I don't know. But the writer, whoever does, I mean, maybe they just Googled all this stuff, which is really cool. But yeah, a forensic psychologist is probably closest to someone who kind of studies the behavior of offenders and why they do the things they do. Criminologist is such a vague thing, because are all these people not all these people are criminologists. I don't even know what that word means. I feel like you only call yourself a criminologist if you're an active academic and your studies are related to criminology. Does that make sense? Like if you're writing fancy journal articles with big words related to the criminological deconstruction of social deviance, those are the kind of people who call themselves criminologists. Shout out to my professors. And then we've got other activists, lobbyists, research assistant, policy analysts, underwriters, editors, professors, mediators, sociologists, another vague term. But yeah, so many different things. And most of these aren't interrogator, although that was there on the list somewhere. But this is kind of what you can do with a degree in criminology. Thank you for coming to my class. You can apply at the link down in the description box. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of people asking what I do, so let's talk about that since we're here. I'm gonna paint the last coat on while we chat what the hell Simply does. So I currently work as a crime statistics analyst for Statistics Canada, which basically means that I write research reports on crime in Canada. And that is different from someone who's on the ground floor interviewing suspects, because I have no direct contact with suspects or accused persons or victims. I'm sitting in an office just looking purely at data, and I rarely do anything at the case level. I'm never looking at people's names or their stories. It's really more of a quantitative job, which makes sense because it's Statistics Canada, but just to explain. So yeah, I basically write research reports on crime trends in Canada, and my division will offer a lot of high level stuff, is crime in Canada going up? Is it going down? Which crimes are increasing? Which ones are decreasing? But it's all the aggregate data. So you take the number of crimes across Canada and then you put them all in one giant data set, and then you report on what's changing, how is it changing, who is it affecting, who are the victims, who are the accused, what's happening at the court level, how many are going to correctional institutions, and none of that involves analyzing crime scenes like CSI. So it's really a data position. And to be honest, I don't really know how I ended up in data. My degrees are not in statistics or math at all. I always thought like I wasn't the best person at math, and I kind of learned statistics on the job. But where I work, they were looking for people with let me just change that, sorry. They were looking for people who had subject matter knowledge, so people with a background in criminology. No, I don't get to wear cool sunglasses like CSI Miami. I don't know why Ben is asking me that question. He literally has the same job. So I have worked as a crime statistics analyst in some capacity since I was in my master's degree. I got hired as a student while I was doing my master's. They were specifically looking for a master's student, and I started in data analysis of reintegration programs for corrections. So basically, like, how many offenders in Canadian institutions were completing correctional programs, and what were the outcomes of those. And then shortly after that, after I was a student and I finished my thesis, I was hired by Statistics Canada, which is a different government agency. I've always been working for the government in some capacity since university. And I was hired to work more generally on crime statistics in Canada. What kind of programs? Correctional programs. So when you are admitted to a correctional institution in Canada, which means that you've been convicted of an offense with a sentence of 2 years or greater, then the institution will have a number of different programs like anger management programs, family violence programs, Indigenous related programs that will help teach the offender about the best ways to address their crimes and the best ways to proceed with their eventual reentry into society, because the goal is always reintegration and rehabilitation. That is one of the principles of the Canadian criminal justice system. And I'm not saying that it's perfect. Of course, not all programs work out for everyone, but one of the goals of the Canadian justice system is to offer some of these programs. And yeah, I worked on the data behind them, not the program itself. But yeah, I always thought that was so interesting. I never delivered the program myself, but I spoke to people who did, and I really have so much respect for them going into work every day, trying to improve the lives of people who've been convicted of crimes with the goal of helping them reintegrate into society and never commit a crime again. And a lot of that involves helping them establish social supports once they're out, right? Because it's not just as simple as, oh, let's give you an anger management class. It's once you're out, do you have a job? Do you have money? Do you have somewhere to live? Do you have people in your life who can support you? And hopefully there's some ongoing programs you can take once you're on probation or you're in the community. So that was kind of I did data around those things when I first started 7 years ago, 8 years ago. Everyone's asking where Ben works. Why doesn't Ben just answer in the chat? He works at the same department as I do for Statistics Canada on crime statistics, but he works on a different team. So I work, okay, let's go to where I am now. After my time at Corrections Canada in programming, I moved to Statistics Canada, and I worked a little bit more generally on crime trends in Canada. That includes anything from police to courts and sometimes corrections. And I'm on the analysis team, which means that we are the people who write the papers and we write the reports, and they're all public. So if you've ever Googled my name before and you've Googled Rotenberg Statistics Canada, you will find stuff. No, Ben is not my administrative assistant. What the heck? Stop. Okay. I work on a different team as him. He works on like data development. I don't know what he does, honestly. He just pets Menchie and Zyler. That's what he does. The shade. Okay, so I'm on the team that writes the reports, and he's on a team that gets new data, I guess. They also write like special topic linkage reports that require more sophisticated ways of like joining data together. I'm on the team that writes stuff meant for the public consumption for the most part, which is kind of cool because it means that everything I write, well, most things I write get published, so like anyone can Google it. Also, as a disclaimer, I hope this was clear. Like, I'm not on this stream speaking as a representative of the government of Canada. Anything that I say here is just like me as an individual. But a lot of the stuff I've written is public, so even if I comment about it here, like, it's literally on the internet. And the fact that I wrote it is on the internet. Ivana asks, was it hard for you to learn all this statistics stuff on the job? Yeah, if I'm being honest, because I was never like a quantitative person. I remember in second year criminology, we had to take like a sociological methods class that involved using statistical software, and I was like, oh my god, I fucking hate this. Like, I was way more interested in the qualitative aspects of crime and, you know, the reasons why and how, as opposed to calculating chi-squares. Like, to me, that was just not interesting. And then it's kind of ironic that I eventually ended up in a statistics career. But like I was saying earlier, I think my employer, while there are people who have like backgrounds in statistics, most people who have a specialty or a background in crime and criminology don't have statistics too, because it's one or the other, right? Like, there's only so many degrees you can have, and not even everyone I work with has a background in crime. You know, sometimes they can learn stuff on the job. But yeah, learning statistics on the job was challenging, but it became easy once you have coworkers that kind of teach you which softwares to run. And I feel like I was always good at the basics of like Excel and stuff, or making graphs, because I'm a very visual person. So I figured it out pretty easily. But I mean, I wouldn't even say that I'm like an expert in statistics. There are definitely people out there who have an educational background in stats that know way more than I do. I kind of just like follow the code. I like trust someone else's logic, and I'm like, okay, now I will plug my ideas and my variables into this already verified logic, so I make sure I don't fuck anything up. And then everyone always checks each other's work. And yeah, I'm not alone in pulling the numbers and making sure they're correct. There's so many people involved in any release on crime stats. Like, there's a whole team of methodologists whose job it is to literally establish methodology behind how numbers are counted. And then we kind of trust them to implement those things. And then we check our work with them and other people. So even though if quantitative statistics isn't your thing and you want to become a subject matter expert on like another field that you just really feel passionate about the subject matter, like the content, like maybe you really like crime and criminology and the sociology or psychology behind it, that doesn't preclude you from having a future in writing research reports about it. I think even statistical organizations really appreciate you having that background knowledge, because the fact that I have degrees in crim allows me to contextualize the stats I'm finding about why these things might be happening, what laws may be driving them, and just having a general knowledge of that topic and subject matter is a good thing. Okay, you guys everyone wants to see my work, huh? Yes, okay. My boss is gonna love this. Someone asked, so is Canada a safe place to live compared to other countries? Let's find out on this episode of Simply Nailogical. Canada versus US crime rate. Now, what I'm doing is not what you should be doing, because let me just preface this part by saying that how we count crime in Canada is very different than the States. There is no standard metric because the way you count something can directly impact how the data is comparable. So in Canada, we have a pretty good system in the sense that all police across Canada, well, like 90-something percent, 98%, report it directly to Statistics Canada, which is where I work, and then the methodologists and the data experts at Statistics Canada will make sure it all is speaking the same language so that you can make fair comparisons across it. You can say, like, you know, national level statistics that make sense, and you can compare provinces or regions, and it's so important from a data perspective, regardless of the topic, to be able to have like standardized data that was collected in the same way using the same methodology, or else like how you compare shit isn't the same. Like all of a sudden you'd be talking about apples and oranges. So if we're comparing Canada crime rates to the US, I don't know if I'm talking about apples and oranges because I'm pretty sure that collecting crime stats in the US is done very differently. I think it's like a state-based metric where each state will report on it, and they don't have the same kind of national oversight body as we do in Canada. That doesn't mean that all their statistics are invalid. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying like it becomes hard to compare in between countries. But that being said, we work with the data we have sometimes. That doesn't mean just forget about it. So I remember this was done by StatsCan like so long ago. Look how old this is. Yeah, this is way too old. This is from like 1998. Okay, bad example. Okay, I'm gonna do the homicide rate just because I think that that information is easier to come by, because homicides are easier to count. So here, a number one question I've seen ever since streamers have been reacting to JCS Criminal Psychology, which happens to contain mostly murders that took place in Ontario, is why are there so many murders in Ontario? Well, there are not that many if you are comparing it to the States. So this graph is Canada versus US, but the rate in Ontario is pretty similar to the Canada rate once you control for the population. And yeah, let me just explain first, in case you are wondering, the crime rate is the correct way to analyze the difference in volume in crime because it takes into account the size of the population. So if we were to count the number of homicides in America, of course it's going to be higher than Canada because America has a population much bigger than Canada, right? But the crime rate takes the number of homicides, then divides it by the population, so you're controlling for how big the population is. So this is the crime rate, which is the correct way to look at it. And then we have United States floats around 5 or 4 point something homicides per 100,000 population. And then Canada's at, it's like 1.8 was the last year reported. And I think this data actually crawls Statistics Canada. I'm pretty sure, because it's the same as what I remember from Statistics Canada. I don't know what the US statistics one is crawling, but just to dispel the myth I've been hearing, Ontario is not the murder capital of the world. We won't go into what actually is because there's a whole bunch of other countries at play there, but I think most people are interested in the comparison to the US. Oh yeah, here's the source button. Oh, they're gonna charge me for the source. Right, of course. No, thank you. Like, okay, crime statistics in Canada are free, but I know they definitely crawled Statistics Canada to get this line, and I'm pretty sure it's like the Department of Justice or FBI that the US statistics are from, but it's state-based, so it's a little different. All right, so let's look at what Statistics Canada does. This has turned into not sponsored. Okay, so I'll show you what my team does because I feel like it's a good example of what someone with my path went into. I did not write this. This is my team member, but I write more specialized stuff. I'll get into that next, I suppose. But this is kind of just like a good overview of what is crime in Canada and generally what we can say about it. So police report. Oh yeah, the first thing we need to talk about. I'll find you where they talk about that. Okay, I think the number one thing that I need to point out is that there's a difference between crimes happening and us knowing that crimes have happened. So in school, they refer to that as the dark figure of crime, right? Because there's so many crimes all the time that go unreported. And the only way that we know about them happening is whether they are reported to police and then police report them directly to Statistics Canada, or whether they are reported on like social surveys and then you let the interviewer know, like for example, that no, I did not report it to police, and then that can give us an idea of how much crime goes unreported to police to help get better insight into what is that dark figure of crime. But the stuff I have here up on the screen is only police reported crime. So it means only incidents, or I say incidents because I'm so used to that word, but it's just like a word that doesn't make sense to the average person. Only crimes that were reported to police or through proactive policing. So like if a police officer witnessed the crime, then it would be in this data as well. So it's definitely not everything. And here's a good stat here that like a survey found that just under a third of crimes were reported to police, which means that 2/3 of crimes overall are not reported to police. And yes, that number is going to vary depending on the type of crime. For sexual assaults, it's incredibly low reporting rates. I think the last time I looked at the stat, it was only 5% were reported to police. So it really depends on the type of crime. But generally speaking, yeah, most crime is not reported to police. So always keep that in mind when you're reading these research reports in your spare time. Okay, so where's crime in Canada? Yes, we have crime in Canada. There are 36 million people here. I know people like to make the joke that the crime does not happen here, but it does. All right, so I'm trying to figure out the best place to introduce this to you guys because I know there's a lot of language here that's a little annoying. Okay, I think I'm just going to start with the pictures. Let's start here, just because that's easy. Here is a graph. So crime over time, the new time series analysis. This is Canada. I did not make this myself, but people on my team did. Shout out to Brianna, my friends. So I really like the historical look at crime too, but you have to remember that because legislation and policies and introduction of like new crimes change over time, that is always going to impact this kind of thing. So, you know, this just gives you like a general high level overview. But yeah, so the total crime kind of went up into the 90s. This is the rate per 100,000 population, so it does take into account the fact that the population grew. And then it kind of decreased over time, and then we see a small increase here. And it's also split up by property crimes, other crimes, and violent crimes. So it looks like property crimes, for the most part, was driving the slight increase. But generally speaking, crime in Canada was at an all-time high in the 90s, and I think people who are older than me will kind of know that and feel that. So that's the crime rate. That is the simplest way of looking at crime and how much is there. But then there's another way of looking at crime, and it's how serious was it, right? Because there's a difference between an increase in, mischief offenses versus homicides. If there's more homicides, that's something you want to know about more than mischief offenses, because that's like, you know, a non-violent crime that may not affect your life, or, doesn't mean things are getting worse. So that's where the crime severity index comes into play. So the crime severity index is like a mathematical measure of severity. It kind of reminds me of the consumer price index. I don't know if that's a thing in the States. Here in Canada, we have something that kind of measures the price of consumer goods and whether or not it's increasing, and it's always relative to a baseline year. So are things getting more expensive or not? That's kind of like how the crime severity index works. Is crime getting more serious or not? Okay, so some of you guys know what I'm talking about because this is from economics. Yeah, so same kind of concept. That's what the crime severity index does. And it's kind of like each crime is awarded a score. So the more severe the crime, the higher the score. And then that score will be entered into a calculation which spits out something like this. So a homicide would have a higher score than an old cannabis offense. And I believe that those scores are actually decided by sentencing outcome. So how long and how serious the court sentencing outcome is what is used to weight each crime severity on the severity index. I feel like I'm giving a presentation. Like, what is my boss is like, why don't you do this for at work? Yeah, accountants use indexes too. Okay, so this is a concept that other people will be familiar with. You guys find this interesting? You bunch of nerds? I'm just kidding. I'm glad you find this interesting. I also feel weird like talking about this as simply not logical, simply nailogical. But yeah, here we are. I guess just telling you about my life. Give you knowledge. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm going to convert everyone into criminologists after this. So, sorry. Subscribe to become a criminologist. Okay. So yeah, that's the two basic ways that we measure crime in Canada. I don't know how it is in the States, but I think those are pretty universal concepts for measuring crime. Two easy ways to understand crime. And as far as homicides go, since that seems to be what most people are interested in, JCS fans, police reported just over 600 homicides in 2019 in Canada. If you were interested in the actual number, that's it. That doesn't sound like that much, but any homicide is too much, so I don't want to say that, but yeah, that translates into a rate. Once you put that over the number of people there are in Canada, it's 1.8 per 100,000 population becomes the rate of homicide in Canada, and that is how you can measure change over time because our population always changes. And it's always important to remember that there's always victims and people, real lives behind these numbers. So if I'm speaking about this in like a really like straight up way, like as if I don't have emotion, it's not because I'm not thinking about that fact. It's because sometimes in order to do this work, you just have to look at it for the data. And don't get me wrong, I've definitely spent too much time, I think, reflecting on this, and I've read case studies that I've really felt, it's hard. It's hard to work on this stuff, but I've also gotten good over the last 10 years of my life, just like getting used to it as a job. So I just want you guys to recognize that in any of these things you're reading, whether it's on the news or in a paper, like if you're reading about homicide rates, these are real people. It's important to look at the trends, and find out what's going on. But yeah, it's heavy shit. Gabrielle says, your articles have such heavy topics. Do you find it hard to cope at all? So, like I just said, I think I'm getting used to it. At the beginning, I did find it more challenging. And there was one paper I was writing like 5 years ago where I had to read the homicide narratives of about 200 cases in order to do a little bit more of a qualitative turned quantitative analysis of something that you could only get from reading the narratives. Like the homicide narratives where the police will just like add some context, like they will write up part of their report. So you can learn more about the incident itself that way. And I think like doing that kind of stuff is hard for me because there's really you start to see the story behind the victim. But generally speaking, my job doesn't involve that kind of case level stuff. It's just like literally numbers. I don't see names. I don't see much more information about it. I don't see the context. And I mean, that can be a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it. But I feel like it's the kind of job that's not for everyone. Someone has to do this. There are people who are really good at doing this. And I think it's if you do this kind of thing, you have to take it seriously. And so that's what I've always tried to do. And you have to have, Luna says criminology makes you realize just how strong your mental health needs to be. It's a part of my course, and it was a struggle reading everything, for sure. And I think people who work in the justice system, especially frontline workers, like people actually dealing with victims or offenders, those people need to have the right resources in place to take care of their mental health, for sure. So let's look at some pictures because they're easier to look at because we love visuals. Okay, so my department makes these like infographics. I did not make this one. I did make one, maybe I'll show you after, but this was a graphic designer who did this one, so not me. So this was the last annual infographic we have for crime, police reported crime in all of Canada. And it just kind of gives you a good summary here. This is the crime severity index, like we were talking about earlier. So how serious is crime? And you kind of see that it declined and then slightly had a bit uptick in the last 7 years or so. And then why, right? So the answer is like, why? Why is there a slight increase in the severity of crime? And here they kind of break it down for you at a very high level. There's always a long ass paper attached to these things. There's like a 60-page paper if you're interested. If you're a student in Canada and you need more information, this Canada website has this like in research paper format, but just very high level. Fraud increased. If I'm just guessing, that a lot of that might have to do with internet stuff. Child pornography increase, again, from my recollection of reading the full report, some of that had to do with just more incidents being reported because of the internet. And remember that this is all just police reported crime, so it isn't necessarily that the crude number of crimes occurring are happening more. It's just that they're being reported more by police. So I just want to make sure that that's understood too. Like, it's not all about like, oh, let's moral panic. You have to consider the context under which these statistics are from and kind of the background that they come from. Mischief, essay. Oh yes, I shouldn't have said these words on stream. I apologize if these words are uncomfortable to hear. I think I did give a content warning at the beginning, but I get so used to saying these terms, writing papers, that it's literally just like it's a category. But yeah, essays have increased, and that is related to the Me Too movement, which, since you are also curious about what I've done here, I will show you that. So, Rothenberg. So I wrote a paper a couple years ago with Adam. Shout out to Adam. He's not here. My boss tasked us with looking at whether or not crimes reported to police, essays reported to police in Canada increase after the Me Too movement, which I thought was such an interesting sorry, why do I need to use an Okay, sorry. Ben is distracting me. Ben, I can't focus when you're... All right, yeah. Shout out to Adam and his family. Please don't go search my coworkers. Yeah. The problem is all of this stuff is public, so you could have found this anyways. It's not like I'm giving any information away, but just out of respect, please don't go try and find my coworkers. They are private citizens, you know, who happen to work for the government, and they do really good research. Okay, so my boss tasked us with this a while back. This was written in 2018, but after the Me Too movement, as you guys I'm sure are aware, a huge research question was, did this uprising and people reporting on social media that they had an experience with SA, did that actually contribute to more decisions being made to report that crime to police? A research question we could answer. So I'll just open the PDF because I think it looks better, or maybe not. Actually, sorry, I lied. Let me get you the infographic first, and then we can look at the paper. Me Too infographic. I have to Google these things rather than go on the Statistics Canada website because our website's not that great. I don't understand. Daily. Oh, here. Sorry, I'm dumb. I don't even know my own website. It's not, I don't run the website. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so here's a... Sorry, just 1 second. Be right back. Sorry. I needed to drink my tea. Hold on. Okay, we're back. So I made this infographic myself on, I don't know, Microsoft Access, not Access, Engage or something. That's why it doesn't look as good as the other one. Okay. All right, so the research question was, did essays reported to police increase after the very widespread social media Me Too movement? And the answer is yes. So this is where Me Too went viral. And if we're looking at by date, so there's the year before. That's the number of essays reported to police in Canada at a national level. And then, yeah, definitely a huge spike was observed. This drop down is in part because that wasn't completed yet. I don't think the data was fully completed. And since then, because this is kind of an old paper from 2018, but from what I remember reading from my colleagues who kind of followed up on this in other reports, is that, yeah, it did kind of continue to be higher than the average from the year prior to Me Too happening. So at least in Canada, the Me Too movement happening on social media did result. Well, I guess you can't say directly result because we don't know why ultimately someone made the decision, but there was a clear increase in the number of essays reported to police. And I think a lot of the data is what you would expect it to be. So 9 in 10 of the victims were women. And here's just like a look at the average daily number of essays reported to police. Before it was 59, then it was 74. So just another way of showing that it has increased. And then it kind of we broke it down by province. So the increases were mostly seen in all the provinces. At the bottom, oh, someone just asked, what is #MeToo? So that was where people across social media, it was like a whole international event, came forward after decades of frustration of feeling like they weren't able to report their victimization to police, feeling frustrated that they weren't believed by their peers or police officers or the justice system, and finally decided to like spread on social media that they too had been a victim of this type of violence. So they would write #MeToo with their stories on social media, and it was kind of a way for not just women, but anyone who'd been affected by this in their lives who hadn't spoken up about it to kind of come together in a way and show support and solidarity for each other through their bad experiences. So yeah, that's what that was. It was in 2017 towards the end. It also became more known because in the entertainment industry there was a lot of people speaking out about it on that, and it was pretty big on Twitter. Yeah, so Luna says, before Me Too, people were more ashamed about being a victim, but after, people felt it was better to report than feel the pain in silence. And I feel like that's a quick, easy contextualization of how people felt. And with seeing the support of other people who'd been speaking about what happened to them, it kind of encouraged other people to also share what had happened to them. And as far as the justice system is concerned, the research question was, did this actually result in people reporting even historical essays to police? And the answer was yes. So I think that's a good thing. So yeah, overall in Canada, there was a 24% increase in the rate of essays reported after Me Too. And as far as who those people were, well, we know they were mostly women, but where were the increases? So increases were most seen among victims who were women under 25 years of age, and involving accused or perpetrators who were quite young, actually, between 12 and 17. That category doesn't mean that most of them were 12. They were not, but that's just the way that the category is that we have. Yeah, so that's kind of the high level overview. And then it is connected to a very long report that's like 1 million pages. What else can I show you here? I think there's an easy graph here. No, there it is. Hello. So this kind of shows you the annual cadence, which I think is interesting too, because reporting of essays kind of drops over the holidays every year. Look at that, see? In December. Bloop. And then there, that was Me Too. So there's definitely been more information since then. Just this is an older report, so I don't have the data now, but you can go on Statistics Canada and like get some of the raw data in case you're working on this for a research project. Yeah, it's kind of like sad, depressing stream. I don't mean for it to be. But yeah, if you just wanted to know what the heck I do, this is it. I wrote all this stuff. We write headlines. We defined the periods. It's like any research paper that you might write, for school. Although this one is very statistics based. It still requires a lot of context. So like explaining what Me Too is, explaining how we divided the data to make it make sense, to make sure the comparisons were fair. Yeah. Did you do a third coat of Zyler yet? No, I haven't. Or wait, I did. But maybe I should do the Glossy Taco. What a strange mix of crime and nails, huh? Are you a good writer? Asked Sunny. I don't know. You tell me. Go read my paper and tell me if I'm a good writer. Okay, now we're going to add a nice thick coat of Glossy Taco. I had added 3 coats of Zyler, but now we add Glossy Taco to seal all the glitters in, which is essential when you are working with glitters, because you want your taco to sink into the glitters to give it a nice glossy, juicy finish. Otherwise they dry a little bit rough, which is fine if you want textured nails, I suppose, but I always like my glitter nails to look like glass. So I add a nice thick coat, and sometimes I'll add 2 coats. I'm probably gonna add 2, but I have to let the first coat of taco dry. Now let's do the thumb. I'm gonna look at the chat next and answer some questions. Just let me finish my nails. Who else is painting their nails with me? Were you guys distracted by all the data? Distracted by the data.
What do you think? What do you think?
What do you think? We've got Zyler the cat, hashtag savezyler. A beautiful fall pumpkin spice hollow glitter. What did I do to the cap? Oh my god. Don't leave me alone with nail polish. Yeah, don't let Zyler be discontinued. Okay, so that's it for my nails. Let me just take a look at the chat here. Do I have chat here? Oh, there we go. Look, I have you beside me now. Let me turn this off. All right, so I'm ready to take your questions. If you have any questions about where to apply for this Simply Criminology degree, that's a joke. I do not run a college or a university. Yes, you can only get a Criminology degree if you subscribe to this channel. Teddy Bear 1287 says, how many reports do you write in a year? Not that many. Honestly, like, I'll spend an entire year getting one report that is that long, like a 50-page report out the door. And that's for a number of reasons. Like, you can't just write whatever you want and then whip it out the door. There's so many different steps involved. There's getting the data, making sure the data is final and checked and validated by other people. Then you have to analyze the data, and then you have to write your report. Then you have to find your resources. Then you have to make cool graphs, and then other people need to check your work, and then it has to be reviewed by other departments, other organizations, other much higher level people. And anyone who's ever worked a corporate job knows how long that might take when different levels of management need to review your work. That can take some time. And then it has to go through production review, and so many things need to be checked for it to go up on the website, right? Because it's going to be a public document. So yeah, I would say maybe not a full year, like a bit under a year. But it really depends on the content. Like, I work more on special topics. Like, this Me Too report was a special topic. So, you know, that might take a bit longer if we're using a methodology that we haven't used before. Whereas some of the more general crime statistics, like annual reports that they basically write the same report every year, that might be easier to write because you're just plugging in new data. So it really depends on what it is. Would you, Laura Jones, would you ever consider doing a PhD? Probably not. But like, I don't know. I mean, right now, I don't see me having time or really a motive to do a PhD. I applied for my PhD while I was finishing my master's, and I got accepted, and I had initial plans to do my PhD. But then I got a permanent job for Statistics Canada and just decided that I was really happy about getting that job. And it was a good job. And there's no way I could have done a PhD with that full-time job at the same time. So I kind of just changed directions. And as far as my job is concerned, I don't need a PhD to do what I do. I don't even need a master's. Like, there's a lot of people who work in my department who just have a Bachelor of Arts. It's like a combination of experience and education. I think at minimum, most people have some kind of university education. Maybe half the people have their master's, and like, I don't know, 1 in 10 have their PhD, but it wouldn't really help me in my career. If I ever did a PhD, it would be because I just want to, if that makes sense. Will I want to? I don't know. I'm a streamer now. I don't have time. I should stream doing my PhD for the next 5 years. Cassie, would you consider statistics a research application method? A research application method? There are many different types of research methods, and statistics, I guess, is one of them, because you have quantitative methods and then you have qualitative methods. So in sociology, they kind of encourage a mixed methods approach. In English, it's important to do research that both quantifies the problem you're looking at, so you can objectively step back and be like, this is the problem and this is how much it is. And then also have some qualitative research accompanying it that is like, who are these people? Why? What is the context around it? Why does it matter? And is there anything we're missing that can help explain it? Maybe you do some focus groups or some case level interviews. So anyone who's in like a sociology class, they hear a lot about mixed methods and the importance of doing quantitative and qualitative research to get the best, view of whatever it is you're researching. So I think there's value in both. My degree was very qualitative. Like, my thesis was just a long ass 200-page story. And then my day job is very quantitative. But, I think there's value in both of them. Grace, what was your thesis on? Okay, it's already been 2 hours, guys. We're not... That is the most boring stream in history, is reading my thesis. The title of my thesis was... What was it? Oh my god. It was so long and confusing. The pathologization of self-injury in correctional discourse. Yeah. Okay, we'll save that one for another stream. What was the hardest report you ever had? Asked Lil Roro. I think, I don't know if hardest is the right word, but I think like a challenging thing to do is when you are running data in a way that is like the first time anyone's running it in that particular way. But there's always a reason, right? Like, there's always a new research question that warrants a new way to look at something. And I think for me, it was when I did a linkage, which is basically taking police data and finding those people, the accused in the police data, finding where they are in court. Because it's not as easy as you think. It requires a lot of methodologists, like linking people based on their name, location, their date of birth. Actually, Ben knows a lot more about linkages than I do. I just like analyze the results. But record linkage, if there's anyone in the chat who works on record linkage, that is a challenge. But yeah, I wrote a report on the attrition of essays between police and court, which basically means how often do essays reported to police fall off in between police and court. Like, are they going to court or not? Sophia's here? Where? Sophia, you've joined us for the Criminology live stream. I don't know where she chatted. Oh, just sitting here eating salad, listening to Simply Career Logical. Thank you for eating your salad. We should have Sophia explain her education. What was it, in like literature? I can't even remember. I'm a bad friend. But she is a smart lady. We'll see you soon when we come to North Carolina. Weirdo asks, is there gun control in Canada? If so, has that affected how much gun-related violence there's been? That is a giant question that I alone I don't have all of the information. I feel like it's challenging to answer that just in a vacuum. We have stricter gun laws than the US, if that's your question. And I think a lot of people who work in the crime and justice field would agree that that is a big reason why we have much less gun violence and homicides by firearms in Canada than the US. And if I'm being really honest, like, I think the gun laws in America are insane. And it blows. It's just like, I don't understand a world where you can just walk into a Walmart and buy a gun. Yes, I grew up in Canada, so it's absolutely not something I'm used to. And I know that a lot of Americans feel that frustration. I know there's so many of you saying, like, yeah, you agree that the gun laws are not good. And it doesn't take a criminologist to recognize that. Literally look at gun laws in any other country and how much gun crime and homicides by gun crime they have, and you will see a trend that there is less gun violence when there is less guns. That is just, you don't need a criminologist to explain that to you. That being said, I think there should be legislative changes, but I can totally see how it's going to be challenging to take away all those guns that are already out there. And that is something that people are really going to need to think through how that's going to be accomplished. Like, that's the real challenge to me. Like, getting legislation and fighting for that is one thing, which I totally agree with, but what are you going to do with all the guns that are already there? And the people who are, like, going to demand some kind of grandfather approach where they get to keep their guns. Okay, let's move on from gun violence. Careful, yeah. Okay. The US has more guns than people? Yeah, okay. Are you fully vaccinated yet? Yes, I am. Yay! I got my shots. I'm fully magnetized. Proud. Yes, so I'm excited that soon we're going to start traveling. Actually, we talk about this on Taco Tuesday on the Simply Podlogical podcast, so make sure you tune into that. You'll hear more about that little life update. Ever, you got your 5G too? Yes, where I am connected to the internet right now through my arm. It's great. When is the next HOLO Taco release? At the end of the month. Sophia asks, okay, so what crime show is the most realistic? Like, obviously JCS Criminal Psychology, because it's literally a view from the interrogation tapes, and anything that is truly a depiction and it's not even a show, that's going to be the most realistic. I find once you produce something into a show and you have actors, it's hard for me to say like, oh, that's realistic, you know? But yeah, if we're talking about like crime, like produced shows, I don't know. Like, I don't even think I watch those. Ben, do you have any idea? Like, I'm trying to think. The Wire? Yeah, I watched that a long time ago. That was a good show. It's so old though. I feel like if I watch The Wire back today, there's gonna be stuff in there that's definitely like insensitive. I guess that's the case with any show. But Gabby Walker, do you watch any true crime YouTubers? Well, I watch JCS Criminal Psychology. I honestly, like, I find it frustrating to watch some of the other true crime on YouTube, because when people use things like, did she deserve it, in their thumbnail or title, that's not going to be a click from me. VS says, this was so calming, I actually fell asleep. Well, thank you. Did anyone used to fall asleep in class? I feel like I fell asleep in class once in a psychology class, because we just had to memorize like internal locus of control or something. Sophia is asking, or she says she watched a show called Lie to Me. I've never seen that. What is that? How do I not know about this? Where are the fluffy children? Asks Sherry. I don't know. Ben has them downstairs. Prabjot Passy says, will there be a criminology podcast soon? I found this really informative. I don't know. I've always felt like a little weird about talking about this stuff for a few reasons. Like, A, because I don't know if like people are going to misconstrue me as some kind of representative for the Canadian government. And that's not at all what I'm trying to do. I feel like there is public research that I have done or my team has done. So you can see that on the internet, so there's nothing like wrong with me saying here is what it says. I'm not changing or adding anything different to it. And then I also just feel like the topic is already so sensitive, and I hold it to a certain standard that you have to approach it with a level of professionalism, because that is the way that I've been trained to talk about it. So sometimes I feel like when people ask me for true crime reactions or podcasts, they want me, or they're kind of looking forward to me talking about the nitty-gritty details of someone's victimization, because that's what people find fascinating. And I'm not gonna do that out of respect. And I also just feel like I am not a criminal psychologist. I am not an expert. So me reacting to that wouldn't even be giving you content other than, I don't know, like, what am I adding to it than anyone else who's just watching it? So I just feel like a little weird about it in that sense, if that makes any sense. Have you ever watched Criminal Minds? Yes, I loved Criminal Minds. It's probably also part of the reason I was interested in criminology. Please do a criminology podcast. I swear it won't be weird. But like, what else do you guys want to hear that I didn't say in this stream, right? Yeah, okay. Tell me in the chat then, what that I didn't say in this stream would you want to hear that isn't just like talking about the gruesome details of someone's murder? Your thesis? No, like you're wrong. You do not want a stream on my thesis. Podcast with Sophia? Oh no, you're putting her on the spot. I definitely want to do like an IRL stream with Sophia. Maybe when we're over there. I can make her a pottery teacup. What Ben does? Yeah, well maybe Ben can just take over my stream and tell you what he does, because I don't know what he does. Like, okay, we could do a podcast, or not a podcast, a stream of my thesis, but I'm telling you, after 10 minutes, you're gonna be like, damn, Christine, this is why you're a YouTuber. Sophia said, make Tyler and Ben do the podcast alone. You know, I'm down for that. They would just talk about video games, though. They'd talk about video games and, like, just, you know, making money off of their women. That's a joke. Mackenzie, is your main income from HOLO Taco, YouTube, or your stats job? I guess it's hard to separate like my YouTube stuff into different domains. But if you're asking like, do I make more money off my internet stuff versus stats? It's definitely the internet stuff, which I've talked about before has made me question the nature of my reality. If anyone watches Westworld who gets that reference. Yeah, like I've heard the criticism of the fact that influencers, you know, they make $2 million to have this brand deal or whatever. But then doctors only make $200,000 to literally save lives. And that is just like why society, what the fuck? I hear that criticism. I think that way sometimes too. I'm just like, damn, like doctors should be making more than this girl, you know? But that's just not how the world works. That's not how supply and demand works. And that's not how advertisers and their return on investment works, because as consumers, we are the ones propelling the value of influencers ultimately. So I think once I realized that, I was like, oh, okay. You know, I still think doctors should be paid more. Nurses, especially. Teachers. But yeah, my salary at Statistics Canada is actually public. It's not a secret. Well, it doesn't, if you search my name and salary, it won't tell you. But if you are an employee of the government of Canada, it is part of some kind of transparency act that your rate of pay is published just based on what level you are. So like if you knew that someone was a level 2 in a particular division, it will say that on the public website. It'll say X amount of dollars a year. I think my position at full time is somewhere in between $80,000 and $90,000 a year. I started at $50-something thousand a year and eventually moved up. So if you're interested in what kind of salary crime statistics analyst makes, it varies. I also work in the government. Yeah, does that? It's a lot, yes, but it's hard work, and it took a lot of education to get there. Sorry, I'm just trying to read your chats. Look for yeah. So many people studying psychology or criminology. That's so cool. Yeah, and people ask me this too, like how much money can I make as a as a criminologist, or if I take this degree? And I think that's a really common question for students. Like, if I invest 4 years of my time and how many thousands of dollars in tuition, what am I going to get out of this? What in return on investment am I going to get? And that is a huge question that all students have, more so in the States where tuition is more expensive. And I know that there is a Statistics Canada. I just keep saying Statistics Canada because I know about their work. But Statistics Canada has a report from another division where they looked at the economic outcomes of students based on their degree, and basically found out how much they were making based on what degree they completed, which I think is really interesting tool for current students or students who are just on the brink of applying to university to figure out, like, what kind of salaries am I looking at? And that's a really good question that I think I wish there was more transparency and like openness in discussing that, because right now it's kind of a hard answer to find. If you're in Canada, Statistics Canada has a report on that. If you just Google like university economic outcomes, something like that, you'll probably come across it. They did that just in the last few years. I thought it was really interesting. And it basically found that the higher your education, like if you have a university degree versus not, the more likely you are to have a higher paying job. That's pretty universal in Canadian research. But it also depends on the field of study, right? Like I think the tech industry, you're going to find jobs that pay more, generally speaking, than in the humanities industry. And grad school, like getting your master's or your PhD, isn't always a guarantee that you're going to make that exponential amount of money on your salary, because it really depends how your job values that degree. So like, for example, me, there's people on my floor who are at the exact same level as me or even a higher level, and they don't have their master's. They just have their bachelor's. So my education level doesn't really matter. It's, at least for me in my particular field, but I needed a Bachelor of Arts in order to get in the door. Having a master's helped me get, my position maybe, if they were deciding between different candidates, but for me it wasn't necessary. But that might be different for you. There's some positions that value higher education, like beyond a bachelor's, like if you want to go into academics, or you want to have a specialty, or you want to be a psychologist, you have to go on past your bachelor's in order to be a psychologist. If you want to be a forensic psychologist, then yeah, you're going to need to get a couple degrees. And I feel like sometimes people have thought that I was just like pushing unnecessary education on people, and I just really want to make sure people understand that's never my intention. I will promote education to the extent that you need it for the outcomes you want. So if you want to work in crime statistics, generally speaking, you're going to need at least an undergraduate degree in something. If it's in criminology or statistics, that probably helps narrow it, because your employer will value that. But if you want to be a YouTuber, or you want to go into something more artistic that has less defined education requirements, then yeah, don't go to school for 4 years or 7 years for criminology. Shivani do you recommend studying psychology in Canada for my post-graduation? I'm assuming maybe you're not from Canada, because you're saying, should I study in Canada? I feel like there's definitely a big group of international students who come to Canada and study. I remember when I was in criminology, there'd always be like a group of international students, and I thought that's pretty cool. So, I mean, I don't know. I also don't have a frame of reference to compare to, so I couldn't tell you if graduate studies in Canada is worth more than whatever country you're from. It really depends where you end up getting a job, I think, right? So I guess you have to think ahead and be like, where do you eventually want to be employed, and what do they look for? I think in the States too, where you get your degree is a much bigger deal than where it is in Canada. Like, we don't really have Ivy League schools here. Like, there's no Harvard. I mean, okay, that's not to suggest that there aren't some schools that are more prestigious or whatever than others, but like, it's not to the extent that it is in America. Like, I don't know. I've never been treated like that. And I don't think if you get a university education from U of T versus, I don't know, the University of Alberta or Edmonton. I don't even know. I can't remember the universities in Canada. The U of A. Yeah, like no one, as long as it's in the field that you need for that job, generally speaking, I don't think employers are as discriminatory. That's not always the case. Like, I think in business schools, some business schools have a little bit more prestige attached to them, but at least in the social sciences, I don't think it's as big of a deal as it is in like the States. Some people are flagging law. Yeah, maybe it matters more for law school. Good example, I don't know about. I did not go to law school. I thought about it, but then I worked for a lawyer and hated it and was like, I'm not going to law school anymore. Yeah, U.S. college applications, I say the word university, it's the equivalent of college in the United States. But U.S. college apps are very competitive, and it's crazy also how much you're paying, which is like ridiculous. I mean, there is still tuition in Canada, but there's so many opportunities for scholarships and grants that it's not as impossible to afford. And I am forever grateful about that fact where I am. And I completely understand the position of many students in the States who just literally cannot afford education. And that's just awful. And I wish there was more I could do. Yeah, our undergrad tuition was like $6,000 a year. It was like $3,000 a semester. So that sounds like nothing if you're in the States, but maybe that sounds like a lot if you're in a Scandinavian country where I think a lot of their tuition is almost like state covered or sponsored. I could be wrong, but I feel like when I've said that before, that it cost me $6,000 for 1 year of university. I had Americans say, oh my God, that's nothing. But then there were some people in Europe being like, that's so expensive. So, Iran says university in Italy is like 600 euros per year. So what's that? Not much, right? Yeah. So, and then Perla says $6,000. That was just her books. I'm assuming you're in the States. Yeah, that's crazy. 60 grand? Oh my God. Yeah, okay. Let vent in the chat about the tuition expenses and how unfair it is in order for you to achieve the success you're looking for, because we just all want to learn. And watching JCS Criminal Psychology videos isn't enough to convince our prospective employers that we are qualified. I wish education was more accessible to more people. I think it has greatly benefited my life. If you just pretend that I'm not a YouTuber for a second, like, I would not have the job I have today and found the career path if it weren't for being able to go to university and it not being unaffordable. I was also really lucky that my master's degree basically paid for itself because I got enough scholarships and grants, and I was a teaching assistant that paid. So I actually made a little bit of money, which is wild. I mean, I did work. Like, being a teacher's assistant is work. So every semester I was grading students' papers, had to give a guest lecture, and basically like helped the prof with exams and stuff. But yeah, you got paid a bit for that. So it kind of offset the cost of your tuition. And then I also got a few scholarships where you apply for grants and stuff. But speaking of scholarships, yeah, I've been working on something that I can't wait to tell you guys about. I'm really excited about it because this is something I'm so passionate about. I don't want to get everyone's hopes up because it's not going to be an international or widely available thing. It's a narrow scope of people, but it's what I can make possible. And I'm really excited to eventually announce that. But we've been working on it for like a few months to get it set up. It's like a formal fucking deal, okay? So if you guys remember, I've paid people's tuition for the past 4 years. It started 4 years ago where I paid one person's tuition after they entered like a giveaway. I had a tuition giveaway on YouTube. Like, That's what I'm giving away. People were giving away MacBooks and I was giving away tuition. It was just for people living in Canada, in part because of the cost, but also because I could actually verify that they were enrolled as a student and a wire transfer was within Canada, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, I've upped the number of people I've given tuition away to every year. So the first year it was 1 person, and then it was 2 people, and then it was 3, and then it was 4. And now this year we are doing something bigger because I really wanted to formalize this and create some kind of permanence in my efforts to not just promote and encourage education, but like actually support people's education. So I guess I'm not going to give the details because we're still working on it. But yeah, I'm really excited. No, I'm not spilling the tea. You guys get enough HOLO Taco secrets. And now you want tuition secrets. Okay? All right. Do we want some cats before we sign off for the night? I think we need some cats. Because that was a lot of heavy content. And I really appreciate you guys being respectful in the chat and listening to everything I have to say. And maybe you walk away from this stream with a different perspective or maybe just an interest in the field. But yeah, let's get some cats, okay? Because that shit was heavy. Ben, bring me the cats. And while we're waiting for Ben, I just want to mention that if there's anyone in the chat who is interested in being a moderator for this stream or for a simply Discord server that I'm going to build, there is an application form in the description box. I'm looking for people who are already quite invested in the Simply Nailogical community and who maybe already like run fan pages or have experience being a moderator on a Discord server or a YouTube live stream or even Twitch, really. But yeah, I'm looking for more help because Ben is too busy. He has to work on linkages. No, and I also want to, I think it would be great to connect with you guys. I'm really wanting to build more of a community. So if you're just a Discord user, stay tuned. But right now I'm just looking for people who can help moderate, who have that level of experience and are interested in helping me out. So if that's you and you know what the deal is, the form is down below. We have a cat in a bag. Oh my God. Oh my God. There's a cat in the bag. Menchie. Show her face. Menchie.
No spooking.
Do we all feel better now? Do we all have a great stream? Simply Stream Sunday. Menchie, will you tell them to subscribe to my channel for 3 million subscribers and I'll cut my hair? This is the best thing Ben's ever brought home from grocery shopping. Oh. Oh. The cat is out of the bag. Okay. That's all we got, kids. Okay, who do I raid? How do I raid someone? I can't raid Hassan. He's on Twitch. YouTube will only let me raid a YouTuber. I don't even know how to do it. I think I would have had to pick before. I'm learning how to stream. But I've been really having a lot of fun. And we've already been going for 2.5 hours. Oh my God. If you painted your nails tonight and didn't get distracted, Sophia says, can I cut your hair? Oh, girl. Do we want to see how long it is? You can cut my hair if I can paint your nails. Here. You wanna cut some of this? So yeah, sub goal. Get this channel to hold on. Let me show you the sub goal. I really need a stream deck so I can do this quickly instead of using my mouse. Get me to 3 million subscribers. I will cut my hair on stream. Sophia is invited to fly into Canada if they let you. That we don't know. The border. is to be determined, but I think it's going to take a while to get to 3 million subscribers, honestly, though, because everyone who's watching this is already subscribed. But don't forget to smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and maybe we will cut my hair. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I had a good time, even though, like, I'm sorry if I was a little nervous talking about this when I'm trying to bring in my job, but also keep it low-key friendly. So I'm trying to figure out that balance. But if you guys are interested in more of this stuff, maybe I could do some of it. I just have to figure out, like, what makes sense, you know? But yeah, I'm definitely open to talking about different topics than just painting my nails, you know, even though that is what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah, thank you guys. Yes, but I'm gonna try and play some games. I just have to download them. But yeah, I had a great Simply Stream Sunday. Thank you guys so much for making it amazing and always just being like the best chat ever. So don't forget to subscribe. And Sophia will cut my hair. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. And I'll stream y'all later. Bye.